I want to say tonight that I too am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960. What will happen now? We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that.
Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Cultural Arts Society of Fuquay-Varina, I welcome you and thank you for attending our 17th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. I am Shantika Watkins, Vice Chair, and I am honored to serve as your host today. We have put together an exciting program for you today to include Jasmine Mallory, but also known as Butterfly Beauty, performing spoken word, featured art by our local artist, JP or Jermaine Powell. Please visit his website, jermainepowell.com. We have vocal renditions by Brian Hamilton, an original selection by Iconic Bond, and he's also a local hip hop artist and community servant. And we also have a musical selection by two-time Stellar Award gospel artist, Kim Person, and none other than our very own Reverend Floyd Wicker II, delivering our spoken word for today. I hope you had an opportunity to view our tribute to past keynote speakers immediately preceding the broadcast. We also included an acknowledgement of current and past community partners. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please sit back and enjoy the rest of the program.
Standing here all alone, reminiscing about how far I've come. I've been through the hurt, cried so many tears, through ups and downs. He still stayed here, always near, through every fear. He was right here, and through it all, he answered my call, never letting me fall. And now I give him my all. Oh, I thank him. Through it all, I praise him. Through it all, I can testify he didn't leave my side. His grace and his mercy kept me from dying. I have my life today because I let him have his way. And I thank him and praise him every day, 'cause he's here, always near, through every fear. He was right there, and through it all, he answered my call, never letting me fall. Now I stand through it all.
Greetings to all of you. Welcome to today's 2021 Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. This celebration is hosted by the Cultural Arts Society of Fuquay-Varina. We were established as a committee in 2003, and in 2004, we were chartered as a 501c3 nonprofit governed by a board of directors. The society covers the Fuquay-Varina and surrounding areas. Our mission to appreciate and celebrate diverse cultures. The founder of the organization, Robert Jr., as well as many other board members, graduated from high school during the early 60s. It was a consolidated high school that was separate but equal. Change was needed. Fast forwarding to 2003, the birth of the society. The society grew out of a trip to Dunn, North Carolina in 2003 by Mayor John Byrne and Robert Jr. to attend a celebration of the life of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Impressed at what they saw and following a discussion on their return trip, it was decided that such a program was needed in Fuquay, with Mr. Burt at the helm. At this time, 2003, the town's population was less than 10,000. Due to rapid growth over time, demographics of the population changed to include groups other than whites and African Americans. With this growth in mind, our intent to appreciate and celebrate diversity was accomplished by producing festivals emphasizing diversity and programs addressing relevant issues of the day, all in keeping with Dr. King's efforts. Products of the 60s, the board members were well aware of issues affecting the lives of African Americans. Little did we know in the late 50s that a leader was waiting in the wings who would bring about change that would affect the lives of all citizens, regardless of race, creed, or color. How did this occur? Certainly not by chance or happenstance. Responses were orchestrated meticulously through strong leadership of persons like the late Reverend Dr. John Lewis and our honoree, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. These strong individuals and countless others, steeped in unrelenting principles of faith, worked untiringly to rectify the prevailing wrongs. Despite their best efforts, some of these wrongs continue to persist. Our theme for today focuses on a direct quote from Dr. King: "An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Given the events of 2020, never has this quote been more pertinent than it is today. Due to the current pandemic, our format today is different than any used by the Society in its 17-year history. Despite the climate of 2020, members, namely Ms. Cassandra Flowers, Ms. Evelyn Smith Booker, Dr. Evelyn Booker Wicker, Ms. Lynn Ann Fowle, Ms. Madge Martin, Mr. J. Dwayne Garnett, Mr. Emmanuel Holland, Mr. William Wingfield, and yours truly, pushed forward under the direction of Ms. Shantika Watkins, Vice Chair of the Cultural Arts Society, to present a program continuing our goal of honoring Dr. King and his legacy. We ask that you sit back, relax, as we bring to you another in a long line of celebratory programs. Again, welcome.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prominent clergyman, leader in the civil rights movement, and recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered numerous sermons and speeches during the course of his lifetime. The most notable, "I Have a Dream," was delivered in August of 1963 from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. In this speech, Martin Luther King Jr. called for racial equality and an end to discrimination. The framers of the nation wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights." Martin Luther King Jr. sought to highlight the ways in which America persistently failed to live up to its promises. In his speeches, in his actions, and most importantly, the shortening of his life was a critique of our nation's most important documents, like the Emancipation Proclamation, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. Martin Luther King Jr. stated that these documents were a promissory note to which every American was to follow heir. A promise that all men, Black as well as white, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Martin Luther King Jr. noted that without change, the words of these documents that we hold sacred would become simply empty rhetoric. Today, we commemorate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his dream through an artistic analysis of yet another one of his works, The Letter from Birmingham Jail.
My dear fellow clergymen, never before have I written such a long letter. If it wasn't for this jail, if it wasn't for betrayal, if it wasn't for this wicked trail of injustice my people are forced to live in, or shall I say die, the killings of oppressed people is unnatural. The way brutality cleans its bloody hands, smeared on melanated concrete, blackness keeps catching unholy fire, singed on burnt crosses, worn by hands of whiteness, worn underneath white roads, riding horses, bearing black bodies, strange fruit swinging from the southern trees. Therefore, I called to action, direct action, yet you called my actions untimely and unwise. Tell me, when is the best time to stop evil? Is it ever really wise to let it fester on like a nasty boil infecting the skin? America's pus is harboring underneath the bacteria of sin. Racism and prejudice hides deep down within its follicles. And I'm assured that freedom is the only remedy to pop it, to stop it, to drain it dry, to wash it clean, to soothe it, so that it can cleanse itself and heal the land. My friends, it did come to my attention about the Birmingham tensions, not to mention evil convictions, inflictions, harmings, and countless household bombings that have gone unsolved with Black families involved. So we marched here in order to help resolve. There's nothing left to lose when Black, when you are Negro, when you're humiliated day in and day out, forced to swallow signs reading white and colored, when the Black Mrs. isn't called a Mrs. and Black men are forced to remain boys, the N-word becomes your first, middle, and last name because the oppressor is white and he says so. But see something you can't see. Again, I am not afraid of tension because freedom is never ever voluntarily given. Time has already been told and has nearly flown away as we have been left waiting, flapping relegated wings in the wind for more than 400 years for something God-given, God-willed, and God-born, our human rights. So we continue to fight to be free. Although these thoughts feel more like dreams, never reality when you are Black, seeing mobs lynch mothers and brothers, drown brothers and sisters, cradle us in the cage of poverty, so tight, so tight, so tight to the point we yell we can't breathe as hate-filled law enforcement gaffles us, beats us up, hoses us down, sicks us with dogs, but yet we are bitten with hope in spite of hate, love instead of fear, faith instead of fear. We are hanging on a wing and a prayer and principles because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. My dear friends, we have not made any progress in civil rights, forever fighting the constructs of race, this forced sense of nobodiness attached to our colors, made legal by unjust bodies thought to be righteous, yet they are wrong because moral justice is right. Therefore, I have chosen nonviolence over silence, love over hate, peace over punity, which will always be the greater extreme. So call me an extremist for acting on this gospel of truth, filling this dark hour with light. So bright, so bright, so bright, least our children's children can live. Least we die trying, fighting, standing on the balconies of hope. My fellow clergymen, for the cause of peace and brotherhood, let us bow our heads and pray.
Hello, I am John W. Byrne, Mayor of Fuquay-Varina, and I am pleased to welcome you to the 17th Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, organized and presented by the Fuquay-Varina Cultural Arts Society. The Cultural Arts Society has been presenting this event since 2004, and I am pleased not only to participate, but to see and acknowledge the growth of the event since it first began. The MLK celebration always has been an affirmation of Dr. King's ideals. For obvious reasons, this year's event is being presented a bit differently than what has been done in years past. We aren't sitting shoulder to shoulder or sharing a meal. What isn't different, however, is the intent to honor and remind ourselves of Dr. King's ideals of social justice and equity, and to challenge our community to reach for those ideals in all that we do. I am grateful to the Fuquay-Varina Cultural Arts Society for their work to bring this program to our community in a safe and thoughtful manner, and to the many sponsors of the community, participants who work to promote peace, reach for understanding, and serve our community with kindness. I asked our community to walk in the same love as Dr. King, to be a light. May God bless each of you.
Good morning. My name is Laura Fonstock, and I'm the police chief in the town of Fuquay-Varina. Thank you for inviting me today to speak to everyone on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And this year's theme of an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere is an important theme. Especially this year, police reform issues have come up this year over the nation and even locally. And our police department is invested in ensuring that police reform even occurs here and within our local community. As a matter of fact, you can go on our website, Fuquay-Varina, the Fuquay-Varina website, look at it and see transparency portal. And this transparency portal shares with you the areas in which we can make some police reform. Looking at our policies, you can see that under the 8 Can't Wait program. You can also see some of the outreach initiatives that we've been involved in. Thank you to the community members that have worked with us this year. We've had some local protests that occurred, and those went very smoothly, working with the police department. We also have on our website a way for the community to bring up any kind of concerns. I welcome you to look at that. If you have to file a complaint or have a concern with our organization, you can do that online. You can come see us. You can call me. Our department is willing and able to work with every one of our citizens to ensure professional law enforcement services within our community. We want to make sure that there are no abuses of authority or any kind of brutality or excessive force that occurs. We also welcome you when we have the Citizens Police Academy to occur once again after COVID, one of the other challenges this year. But we welcome you to participate in our Citizens Police Academy to learn more about your police department, to learn more about our policies and our personnel and how we train. And speaking of training, we've had more de-escalation training, crisis intervention, more training with our policies, with our officers to ensure that we deliver the most professional services and fair and equitable services for everyone within our community. So again, thank you for allowing me to speak today, to reach out to each and every one of you. I encourage you to meet with members of our organization, to know those law enforcement officers that work within your community, to build those positive relationships, because we are a community-oriented police organization wanting to work with everyone within our community to develop positive relationships, partnerships, to improve the quality of life for every member of the town of Fuquay-Varina. So thank you, and I hope to work with each and every one of you.
I'm climbing and grinding. I'm riding through, never declining. I'm finding my guidance, guiding my soul with the rhyming. My scroll through the silence, howling the sirens. They hiding, they lying. The lions, they lying. Defiance, rising, we rising like giants. Rising, we rising. The tyrants that keep us from thriving. We striving and trying. We try, survive it, fight it. We fighting to fight it. We fighting the violence. They calling us violent. They did not give us an option. Trying to stop filling the coffins. This stuff happens way too often. We caution the kids so they don't end up forgotten. We stop in common actions just so they don't end up in coffins. We out here trying to live and give our kids a place to grow. Here we go. Every time we see a cop, we hit the flow. Either that and get shot in the back by somebody you know. How we gonna stay focused when we broke it from head to toe? Head to toe. How we gonna stay focused when we broke it from head to toe? Real talk. How we gonna stay focused when we broke it from head to toe? It ain't enough for us to cry no more. We gotta rise to the sky, we can't hide no more. It ain't enough for me to cry, I don't cry no more. Gotta rise till I die, mind, body, and soul. Through the hurting, we coming, you can hear us. We drumming like a marching band. The upper hand is in the plan, and now we through the furnace. We rushing, you can feel us. It's nothing when you got your sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers and uncles, aunties and cousins, and maybe wifeys and husbands. And where you need them, just summon them. Got you feeding and hugging them. Ain't no reason in shunning them, cause they all you got. Who gon' come and get you out that spot when you getting locked up? They gon' put you in the cage, see you getting dried up. They rather see you in the grave than to see you rise up. Tell me who they gon' believe when they got you tied up, or when they got you on your knees yelling, please, please, I can't breathe 11 times before they let you be. That's what they did to Eric Garner, may he rest in peace. That's why this moment we gotta stay focused to notice we chosen for something so potent, but we can't remain broken from head to toe. How we gonna stay focused when we broke it from head to toe? Yeah. How we gonna stay focused when we broke it from head to toe? It ain't enough for us to cry no more. We will rise to the sky, we will hide no more. It ain't enough for me to cry, I don't cry no more. I will rise till I die, mind, body, and soul.
Good morning, everyone, and I really hope that you have been enjoying this program. And we want to keep this movement going by having our speaker, Reverend Dr. Floyd Wicker II, share the legacy of Dr. King. Dr. Floyd Wicker II is a proud graduate of St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in physical education. He received his Master of Divinity degree from Shaw University Divinity School and Doctor of Ministry from Hood Theological Seminary. His public ministry began on April 4th, 2004, when he preached his trial sermon on the floor of the historic First Baptist Church of Raleigh, North Carolina, under the leadership of Dr. Dumas Harshaw Jr. After his ordination into the Christian ministry in 2010, Dr. Wicker was named assistant pastor at First Baptist Church of Fayetteville under the leadership of Dr. Curtin L. Johnson. Dr. Wicker, in his doctoral program, created Project 21, an outreach ministry to returning citizens and their families. Project 21 continues to be a thriving ministry. He currently works as an assistant professor of practical ministry at Shaw University Divinity School. Dr. Wicker is a strong, impactful civic and community activist. In February 2020, he participated in a statewide campaign with North Carolina Raise Up, advocating for a livable wage of $15 an hour for North Carolinians. In October 2020, he acted as one of the coordinators of the first Health Justice March in Fayetteville, North Carolina. As an advocate of public education, Dr. Wicker was selected to be a member of Cumberland County Schools' strategic planning team, where he provided feedback and helped chart the vision of the school through 2024. Currently, he serves as the Vice President for Pastors for North Carolina Children, whose mission is mobilizing faith leaders to advocate for justice in public schools in North Carolina. Dr. Wicker has been a mentor with the North Carolina Department of Public Safety Transitional Aftercare Network for the last 3 years, and he's an active member of the Fayetteville branch of the NAACP. He serves as chaplain and the chairperson of the Religious Affairs Committee. He is an avid participant, speaker, and supporter of the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Dr. Wicker strives to embody the mission of Jesus Christ through acts of love and service to God and others. He is happily married to Marla McAllister Wicker, and they reside in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I now present to you Dr. Reverend Floyd Wicker II. Thank you.
Greetings. I greet you today in the spirit of ahimsa, the spirit of non-injury or non-violence. As we all know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a huge proponent of non-violence. In fact, he said the choice is not between violence and non-violence, but between non-violence and non-existence. Today, I speak to you in that spirit. But first, I'd like to thank the Cultural Arts Society of Fuquay-Varina for inviting me to be this year's speaker. What a privilege and an honor. To the committee, I'd like to say that I, along with so many others, am grateful for your existence as an organization, your mission and purpose, and all of the wonderful things that you are doing to celebrate and promote diversity and inclusion in the town of Fuquay-Varina. Today, I'd like to thank all of the artists who have shared in this amazing program this morning. To my sisters and brothers of the clergy, thank you. Mayor Byrne and all of the elected officials in the town of Fuquay, thank you for what you do to make Fuquay such a great place to live. The year of 2020 will forever be regarded as a year of unprecedented change. For most, it will be remembered as one of the darkest periods or the darkest years in American history. This year reminds me of that well-known quote by the historian Thomas Fuller: "The darkest hour is just before the dawn." And so I say to you today, for those whose eyes are set upon history, in just a few days in our nation's capital, we will witness not another dark and brutal assault upon our democracy. No, in just a few days, we will witness something that has never happened before in the history of our nation: the swearing in of the first Black woman as the Vice President of these United States. What a momentous victory for all women. It reminds me of something that Shirley Chisholm once said when she was asked whether or not a woman would ever become president. She said, before a woman becomes president, she will first have to become a vice president, so the world can get used to seeing a woman in that position. For those whose eyes are fastened upon history, in the state of Georgia, the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Georgians will secure their role in history by sending the first African American and the first Jewish American to the United States Senate. This also is a momentous victory for the civil rights struggle and those whose blood, sweat, and tears have helped to make this day possible. I cite these examples this morning because in the midst of our current crisis, I believe that there is always a glimmer of hope. And so today, if any of us have doubts about whether or not America can or whether or not America will change, I implore you this morning to look no further than the multiracial protests and peaceful demonstrations that have taken place all over the country in the wake of police killings. I ask you today to look at the courageous witness of social activists who are galvanizing women and men to work for social transformation. I encourage you this morning to consider the Governor's Task Force right here in North Carolina, the Governor's Task Force for Racial Equity in Criminal Justice. I encourage you to look at some of the righteous and peaceful actions that have taken place on college campuses, state capitals, parks, and historical sites with regard to removal of symbols that are associated with the vestiges of slavery. If you are wondering whether or not racism and social injustice will have a chance to flourish in a post-pandemic society, take a closer look at the witness of our broader culture, where businesses, corporations, well-known coaches and professional athletes, even Hallmark cards, have used their voices and their platforms to speak out against social and racial injustice. In 2021, it is becoming increasingly difficult to deny the reality that racial disparities exist. COVID-19 has revealed gross inequalities in just about every sector of our society. The siege on our nation's capital is just one of the many instances that reveal the fact that people of color are treated woefully different than others. You see, when you're at a Black Lives Matter protest, peacefully demonstrating the fact that a police officer calmly had his knee on a man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, you get the attention of the National Guard in full riot gear. When you are at a well-planned and timely insurrection, the response is completely different. You see, the Black Lives Matter protest was a righteous reaction to a grave social injustice. What we saw on January the 6th was an egregious act of domestic terrorism fomented by the President of the United States. In the wake of this attempted coup, some Republican lawmakers are now calling on Joe Biden and the Democratic Party to unite the country, because now, they say, is the time for healing. Now is the time to bring the country together. What's so striking about this sudden call for unity is that it's very similar to a letter that was published in 1963 by 8 local clergymen in Birmingham, Alabama. The letter is what prompted Dr. King to write his famous letter from a Birmingham jail. Strangely enough, this letter was also entitled A Call for Unity. In this letter, these 8 clergymen strongly opposed Dr. King's methods of peaceful demonstration and civil disobedience. They said that Dr. King's actions were unwise and untimely. They wanted peace. They wanted things to stay the same. They didn't want King and others to be starting any good trouble in their city. They presumed also that the best way forward, the way to healing, the way to unity for Blacks at the time was through patience and negotiation. The inevitability of time would solve all of these problems. Dr. King also said that time can be used in 2 ways, either constructively or destructively. Perhaps the message then and the message now is all women and men were not created as equals. Maybe the right to vote only applied to certain people. Maybe the message then and the message now is that accountability for one's actions isn't important. Truth isn't important. The rule of law isn't important. The Constitution and our democracy isn't important. Perhaps the message is the only thing that is important is power, control, greed, and dominance by any means necessary, violence included. What kind of message does this send to future generations? What precedent are we setting? A great number of our leaders in Washington claim that now is the time to unite the country. Healing is what we need. But it is here that I borrow from the wisdom of the 12-step program. You see, the first step to healing, the first step to recovery from any type of addiction is an honest admission. First, you have to admit that there is a problem. First, you have to admit that a wound has occurred, an injury. You have to admit that something tragic has happened. People suffering from addiction often suffer through many years of denial. And one of the first signs of this denial is dishonesty. They begin to lie about their addiction. They lie about their struggles. They lie about how bad things really have become. The footage from the insurrection is deeply disturbing. But what's even more perplexing are those who refuse to take action and denounce it for what it was. The addiction to power, the addiction to greed and oppression and violence and supremacy and hatred has reached an all-time high in this nation. As it is with addiction, there is a bottom below every bottom. And the more your addiction grows, the more things get progressively worse and worse. And this reminds me of a verse in the Bible where St. Paul addresses the church in Corinth when they were faced with a very similar predicament. In chapter 10, verse 12, Paul said that there is no temptation that is taken you, but such as is common to man. Paul says, but God is faithful. God would not allow you to be tested beyond what you are able. But with the test, God will provide a way of escape. You see, the temptations and the challenges that came to the church in Corinth were common. They were the types of temptations that all of us are faced with at some point or another. Temptations that can make us or temptations that break us. Sometimes we face temptations and challenges head on. And as a result of facing these challenges head on, we become stronger, we become wiser, we become more resolute, and we emerge from that challenge the better. Paul goes on further by stating that his God will not only make them stronger through the temptation, but will also provide a glorious way of escape. You see, the Greek word here for escape means a way out. It means an exit, an evacuation route, not a way around the problem, not a way around the temptation, but God will provide a way for you to overcome your problem. Friends, we've reached a defining moment in the history of our nation. The question before us today isn't whether systemic racism exists or whether critical race theory is germane to our faith and message. No, the question before us today is, where do we go from here? The question before us today is, how do we move closer to a more perfect union? There are a variety of answers to these two questions, but today I offer you the best that I have. Today, I say, the way we form a more just, a more equitable, peaceful union for all humankind is through the way of love and nonviolence. The life and witness of Dr. King taught us that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. The man in whom we honor today was a radical revolutionary for nonviolent love, because Dr. King believed that it was love that had the capacity to transform people, to transform institutions, and to change perspectives. Non-sentimental love is what Dr. King was a proponent of, because Dr. King and many others knew that love was the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. You see, my religion teaches me to love my enemies because non-sentimental love is the most powerful force in the world. I'm also reminded that Paul said that we ought not be overcome by evil, but we ought to overcome evil by good. Today, we've got to embody the change that we really want to see in the world. We've got to be the light that shines in that darkness. We've got to be the ones who speak truth to power. We've got to be the ones who stand up for righteousness, who stand up for justice, who stand up for the poor, who stand up for those who are disadvantaged, who stand up for those who cannot speak for themselves, who stand up for those who are uninsured, who stand up for essential workers. We've got to be the ones who stand for righteousness in this day and time. Also, we've got to be able to see the humanity, to see the good in each and every person we meet, whether it's a friend, foe, ally, it doesn't matter. We've got to learn somehow to live together. We've got to learn how to work together. We've got to learn how to fight together and work out some of our disagreements together without vitriol or violence. We've got to put more love, more humanity, more justice into all of our dealings. And as Dr. King says, we either learn to live together as sisters and brothers, or we will perish together as fools. And so today, I say to you, keep getting in good trouble, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother, and I say, brother, help me please. And he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. And oh, it's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come.
yes it will.
I march for the marginalized.
I'm marching for unity, peace, and equality.
I am marching for love.
I'm marching for equity and inclusion for all marginalized Americans.
I'm marching for world peace.
I am marching for criminal justice reform.
I am marching for everyone who wasn't born with the same privilege I was.
I am marching for healthcare equity and access.
While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand.